What's up, peers, and welcome to the World Crypto Network, here for a very interesting conversation for the Open Source Everything show. Today, we will travel to the moon, of course, with our secure checking account for Bitcoin to keep our stats quite safe and secure. Muun is a new wallet that I noticed recently, and I think it has a couple really interesting design features, and mainly, but not limited to, Lightning atomic swaps. So very interesting. Here, of course, follow them on Twitter. Very nice. And there's also a great article, Lightning Payments Easier Than Ever, which I highly recommend you to read. And today we're joined by Dario Sneidermanis, a developer for Muun. Daniel, what's up?
Hey, how are you? Great to be here.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Okay, so to start, I mean, now with Lightning, we always have to ask that question. Did you first get interested in Bitcoin, or did you come in here because of Lightning?
So yeah, I've been around the Bitcoin space for quite a while. I think I first heard of Bitcoin in 2011, and since 2013 or so, I've been focusing mainly on Bitcoin, and at first like doing projects for my own, then working full time in projects Bitcoin related in some way. In the last couple of years, I've been focusing on Lightning. So it was really interesting to see how Lightning went from an idea to the state it is now, which is like growing like crazy, and a lot of new products and features coming every day. And so, yeah, I'm super interested in Lightning technology and how it can help solve some of the scalability problems in Bitcoin. But yeah.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, so good to know that that you did get interested in Bitcoin for a while, and then just see the power of Lightning, right? And it's quite some fun to develop there. And okay, so let's talk a bit about Muun. What is the overall pitch for this wallet? Why did you build it?
Yeah, definitely. So the idea for Muun is to make it really easy to use Bitcoin while having a really secure setup in a non-custodial way. What do I mean with that? Like, I think the new thing that Bitcoin brings to the table is the non-custodial stuff. Like up to now, it wasn't possible to have a third party help you in some way manage your money, but at the same time not give them full control of your money. So I think that's groundbreaking, and it changes completely the dynamics of how money can be stored and used everywhere. One of the things that Bitcoin brings to the table is that it's completely universal, and so we can do something with Bitcoin that reaches a lot of people. And I think it's really important to keep it non-custodial. But in order to reach a lot of people, it's also important to make it really easy to use. Up until now, like once I got into Bitcoin, I had my own wallets and like stored Bitcoins and all that stuff, and I wanted to introduce people into Bitcoin, and I noticed pretty early on that it was super tough. It requires a lot of technical knowledge to get into Bitcoin, a lot of research, and the idea was to make something that didn't need for the user to learn all this stuff, but at the same time provide all the values that I think Bitcoin is super great at, especially in non-custodianship. And most of the solutions at the moment compromise security in order to do that, being non-custodial or having a single key that was like encrypted with a password, and that's pretty much it. And so we figured we could do much better than that. And so we created a multisig scheme where the user is completely it's really like protected against different kinds of attacks. And at the same time, we provide a really easy login for people. We wanted to do something that felt familiar to people that aren't like already super into crypto. And so you can log in with an email and a password, and if you lose the password, you have some code to recover that, and all the way we try to be super user friendly and actually think about what the user wants to do, and from that go to what features we should provide, instead of going the other way around, which I think that several wallets used to do, which is like, what can we do with the protocol, and then think, okay, what would the feature be? But yeah, it's tough the other way around, right? Like, you have to provide a really good user experience. You have to do some tricks with the protocol, and it's not always obvious how to do some feature in a usable way. And right now, with the launch of Lightning payments powered by Submarine swaps, we want to do just that, like try to understand what the perfect user experience for Lightning should be, and then from that work out like, what can we do today in order to provide that. And so we went with Submarine swaps. We're also working having like full Lightning channels and all that kind of stuff in mobile phones, but since we can't provide a completely seamless experience right now, we're still working on it.
Very nice, and good that you are focusing on user design first, and to really fix the problems that users have, right? Because I think that is the right approach to do it. What do we actually want to fix, and what tools do we have at our disposal to solve these problems? Right, so I think that's a very smart decision. So you mentioned that this is a multi-signature wallet. What is the script behind this? So is it a 2 of 2, 3 of 2 of 3, and who has the keys?
Yeah, so it's a 2 of 2. It's somewhat similar to what Green has been doing for a while. So there's like, the server has one key, and just one key, and the user has, in a way, the user has just one key. And so the regular usage of to make a payment would be the user signs a transaction, the server signs a transaction, and everything works fine. But the server is doing some kind of risk analysis, actually like theft analysis. We want to detect if there was some problem with your phone. And if so, we will ask for more credentials in order to sign a transaction. This like, the idea of doing this is that, like, even if your phone gets hacked, or you lose your phone and someone is trying to like send all your money somewhere else, we might be able to detect that, and we will ask you for your password or something like that in order to actually sign with the second key. But we had to solve the problem that we want to be non-custodial, and so that means not only that we can't move your Bitcoins, which we can because we have just one key, but also we don't want to be able to freeze your Bitcoins. And so we also we modified the scheme a little bit, and so the key that lives in the server is encrypted with the user's passwords and the user recovery code, and is sent to the phone. And so what actually happens is that at all times in the phone, both keys are present. The thing is that one key is unencrypted and the other one is like deeply encrypted. It's both encrypted with your password and with your recovery code. And so in order to decrypt it, like, you have to input those pieces of information that only you have as a user. And so that all can happen client side. The user actually has access at the end to both keys, and if they want to, they can sign a transaction that spends all their Bitcoins or something like that.
That is very interesting, right? So basically, you achieve something a bit similar to a 2 out of 3, right? Where the user has 2 and the server has 1. But you kind of compress that, right? More data efficient, cheaper transactions then, so that the user has one key, like for regular usage, and the server has one just to sign it off. But in the case of an uncooperative server, the user still has access to that second key, a copy, because you can copy information. So that is very smart, actually.
Yeah. So the idea, we actually took some inspiration from the 2 of 3 scheme, which I think is really interesting. Like, I see like there's 2 problems with the 2 of 3 scheme. One is that, as you said, it's a little bit more heavy on the transaction, and so you will pay a little bit more fee. But the biggest problem usability-wise is that we have to ask the user to back up the third key. And many users, like at login time or sign up time, many users don't know even what a key is or why it's important to make a safe backup of it. And so we were seeing, like, we made a lot of interviews, and we saw that users, especially with mnemonics, they weren't actually aware of the importance of it up until the point that they needed it because they lost the wallet or something like that, and that was too late. Like, most people don't remember where they wrote it, or they wrote it in a piece of paper and left it there in their desks or something like that. And so we wanted to avoid like user pitfalls due to not understanding deeply the security implications of what they are doing. And so that's one of the main things we try to tackle in Muun. Like, how can we protect the user from third parties? How can we protect the users from us? And most importantly, and one thing that I think most Bitcoin wallets don't take that much like interest into today, is in protecting the user against themselves. And so protecting them against losses, against like bad security practices and that kind of thing. And yeah, so that was the focus on, well, thinking about our key scheme and actually like deciding to go with the 2 of 2.
Yeah, okay, very nice. And when I downloaded the app, I was rather surprised that there was no mnemonic, right? You actually encrypt the backup locally, not with a user-generated password, but actually with a secure, I assume, random number generator password. So what are the details here?
Yeah, so what we do with so there's 2 keys in Muun. There's the personal key and the server key. And so the server key is easy to handle because we have that in plain text, and so we don't have to do anything weird with crypto. But then with the personal key, we want to let the user access the key, in some sense regenerate the key pretty easily. So we wanted to recreate what other apps do with their sign up and login procedures in a Bitcoin wallet. And so what we do is that we do something like a 2 of 3 with the personal key. And so one of the parts is the password, another part is the recovery code, which is a randomly generated number. And the third part, we have it, and we will only give it to the client if they click on an email. And so what we manage with this setup is that the user can log in by clicking an email and inputting their password, and the key will be regenerated client side with the piece of the secret that we are giving them and their password. If they forget their password, then they can use their recovery code in order to use the email and the recovery code. And since the second key is encrypted with both the password and the recovery code, having the password and the recovery code, they can also access their money. And so user side, like aside from how this is implemented, user side, they can think of the wallet as a 2 of 3 between the recovery code, the password, and their access to their email.
Okay, very nice. And so you use the email for communication.
Yeah. So the idea is, so we use the email in order to verify, like, once the user signs up, they like peg an email to their account, and the next time they try to log in, we will send them an email that they will have to click in order to actually log in. And so we use it like a factor for authentication in some sense. And yeah, that's why we use the email. We had several like requests to be able to like have an anonymous account in Muun. And so we just restricted ourselves to using the email just for that and anything else. And so since we don't use it for anything like identity or that kind of stuff, for example, for the peer-to-peer payments feature, then it's completely safe to use an anonymous email if you want. The reason we're using it right now is because it's something like everyone has, and it provides a really good security without compromising into like being intuitive to the user.
Yeah, very nice. And right, as you say, right, sock puppet emails, and that then would work.
Yeah.
So you a bit earlier, you mentioned that the server side does some risk analysis, whether
Yep.
or not that user action is actually intended. How exactly does that work, and for what criteria do you check?
Yeah, so for now it's pretty simple. It's based mostly on amounts of what you're sending. Like if you are sending like most of your money, then we deem that we might deem that risky and ask you for your password. Since the and when we ask you for the password, actually, what we're doing, like the password never goes to the server. With the password, we sign a challenge that the server sends, and we verify that the challenge was signed correctly, and that's pretty much it. So we can verify that you actually have the password at the time of sending, without you giving the password to us. The idea is, as we go along, to improve the risk analysis and be able to detect, like, I don't know, different things. It's really tough. Like we have to, while we do this, we have to take care to not leak information to the server that we wouldn't want to. So we're exploring ways in which we can like do this kind of thing client side and prove it to the server in the same way that we do with the password. But yeah, we haven't yet like put that much effort into doing a really good theft analysis. It's tough.
Yeah, I imagine. But good that you think about that.
Yeah.
Right, that is an additional feature that regular single signature wallets just don't have, or at least it's much more difficult to implement. Right, if there's no key on a separate server. So yeah, quite
Yeah.
nice. Then you also briefly mentioned the peer-to-peer payments, right? And as I see that from the user interface, it's that you can put your phone number and contact details. But how does that work? What is the peer-to-peer payment aspect?
Yeah, so the idea was that like when you want to pay with Bitcoin, you mostly like you never want to pay to an address, right? Like the address is like the protocol thing to pay to. Like it could be in some sense similar to like going to the internet and wanting to like access an IP address, and you wouldn't want to do that most of the times. What you want to do is like access some specific site, and in the same sense, when you want to make a Bitcoin payment, most of the times you want to pay either something in your computer or someone you know or someone you have in front of you. And so Bitcoin solves really well the use case where you have someone in front of you, because like the QR thing is like pretty good for that. But the worst experience right now in Bitcoin is wanting to pay someone that you know but you don't have in front of you, saying a friend, for example. Because like the flow right now is like go to some messaging app and asking your friend to give you an address, and they have to go to the wallet, copy an address, paste it somewhere. You have to copy it, paste it in your wallet, and all that. And so we wanted to make that flow much easier. And the idea was to like, hey, like if you have like the people you have in your contacts are probably the people that you want to send payments to. And so what we do is we send the hashes of your contacts to the server. And so with that, we cross-reference which users should be connected without leaking information to the server of what contacts you have in your phone. And once we do that, we interchange master public keys. And so from that point forward, your phone is able to produce addresses for all your contacts because they have a master public key, and they can derive multiple addresses for your phone, for your contact.
Okay, yeah, very nice that it's hashed on the server side. That's very important, because that would have been one of my next questions for privacy.
Yeah.
But then you say that it's the master public key. So for example, if the server then gives me your master public key, I know all of your addresses, right?
I'm sorry.
So yeah, I was just curious if maybe you could use something like BIP47 reusable payment codes, where you have like a Diffie-Hellman key exchange, and then you derive a new address independently just once without knowing all the addresses of the XPub.
Yeah, so we actually give a different key, like for each contact relationship, each pair of two users, a new key, a new extended public key is produced. And so if I'm a Muun user, then I have like a master public key, and from that that master public key has several children, and if I have you as a contact, then I will give you one of the childs, and another. If someone else has me as a contact, I will give him another extended public key. And so even though these are extended public keys, and the user that has this extended public key can produce like an unlimited number of addresses, all these address spaces are separated. And so you can't know any address that I use besides the one I use with you. And so there's no privacy problem in that sense, because every contact relationship has a different extended public key.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to have different paths. Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we've talked a lot about the let's say basic features of this wallet, but of course, what is really interesting is how you're working with Lightning Network. So you mentioned that so far you do not yet have Lightning Network payment channels directly. We might talk a bit about that in the future, but now you already have atomic swaps, right? Submarine swaps. So what is the idea behind this?
Yeah, so the idea was to provide a really easy user interface for making Lightning payments. So I think some wallets actually got pretty near to this, especially I'm thinking in Blue Wallet. So they managed to get a really good user interface to do Lightning payments. And the thing with it was that like we saw it, like I think the peak of it was like the Lightning Torch. We saw a lot of people using Blue Wallet, and I think what they really nailed was the usability. It was like super easy to get on board and to start doing Lightning payments. And so we wanted to provide an experience similar to that without compromising non-custodianship. So we're like everyone is working, I think, in the same goal right now. Like everyone wants to get there. with all the features like really fast payments, really cheap payments, really easy to use, and non-custodial. And like, I think right now we're seeing like different trade-offs being taken, since we're not yet there. And so Blue Wallet took the trade-off of being custodial without compromising either like the price of the payments and like making them really fast and having great usability. On the other hand of the spectrum, like we have like wallets like Eclair, where you have like all the cool Lightning features, and they are non-custodial and they do it really well. But the usability is not that good yet. Like you have to do some kind of channel management. You have to understand channels. You have to choose your peers or that kind of things. And so we saw that no one was like taking the trade-off of like having non-custodianship and really good usability. And so we figured that we could use Submarine swaps in order to do that. So the idea is that a Muun wallet is still an on-chain wallet, but now the wallet has the ability to scan a Lightning payment and with the invoice make a Submarine swap. And the swap is completely integrated, and for the user it looks like a regular transaction. And the idea was to make it really easy to get into, as Blue Wallet did, in a non-custodial manner.
Okay, very nice. So you load up your wallet with on-chain, right? A regular, I hope, SegWit address. And then how does the workflow, or how does this work for the Submarine swap? What are the step-by-steps that the user has to take, and what happens in the background?
Yeah, sure. Actually, so the first step for the user is to scan a Lightning invoice. Once the user scans a Lightning invoice, we do like the wallet will do automatically a request to the Submarine swap server in order to produce an on-chain address where the user has to make a transaction to in order to fulfill the swap. All these will happen behind the scenes for the user. Once we have that data in the user's phone, then we can show all the details. For example, how much will it cost to the user, how much the swap will cost, how much the Lightning fee will cost, what the destination node is, and like all the metadata for the payment. And once the user accepts the swap details, then the device will make a transaction to the swap server. This transaction, like the output of this transaction, has a special output that says like the swap server can redeem this transaction only if they produce the pre-image for the Lightning payment, which is in some sense the proof that the swap server made the Lightning payment. And it has 24 hours to do that. If in 24 hours they didn't do that, then the transaction, like the output, is spendable by the user again. And so the money will return to the user's wallet if the swap server doesn't complete the transaction. In that way, we manage to be non-custodial, and so the user doesn't have to trust the swap server. And if the swap server doesn't fulfill the payment, then the swap, money will go back to the user.
Okay, very cool. And who is that Submarine swap provider?
Yeah, so right now we are fulfilling the role of the Submarine swap. We created a swap server similar to Alex Bosworth swap server. And the reason, like, we tried to go at first with Alex's server, but the reason we decided to go for our own was mainly because in order to provide a really seamless experience, we wanted to make these payments instant, if possible, to let the user experience the same instantness of Lightning. And so we made a couple of modifications to the regular swap server, in which if we don't consider the transaction risky, then we will accept the first hop of the Submarine swap with 0 confirmations, and we'll make the Lightning payment anyways, like without waiting for the full confirmation of the first part of the swap. In this way, we absorb all the risk, and the user is risk-free. We are taking the risk of having some user try to steal the money, but we are being pretty aggressive with the risk analysis right now. And so if there's like a really big payment and those kind of things, we will wait for one confirmation, and the transaction won't be instant. However, for most Lightning payments, transactions will be instant.
Okay, very cool. So you take the 0 confirmation risk for the on-chain transaction and immediately settle the Lightning Network invoice.
Yeah,
very
exactly.
interesting. Okay, very, very cool. And so this is a on-chain to off-chain submarine swap, right? But there's also the reverse, right? To have or Lightning invoice and then get paid out on-chain. Now, are you planning on integrate that as well?
Yeah, so the idea is to integrate that as well. The problem with it is that it's a little bit more difficult to provide a really good user experience, like make it completely seamless for the user. The reason why this happens is that you have to be able to provide a Lightning invoice that accounts for the fees of the on-chain transaction. And so right now, it's not trivial to do in Lightning. Like, you have to modify heavily a node in order to do that, in order to provide like a fake hub or something like that. And so the best solution we have right now is to either charge the fee to the receiver of the payment, or to include the fee in the total amount that the sender has to pay. The problem with having the receiver pay the fee is that you can like make a denial of service in some way, and make the user pay more fees than the money they are actually receiving. And so you have to be a little bit careful with that. But yeah, we're working in a couple different alternatives, and seeing what works best from a user experience perspective. But yeah, the idea is to go ahead with it. Since it's a little bit more difficult, we wanted to release it right now with just the sending feature. But yeah, once we have it working and providing a really good experience, we will go ahead with releasing that too.
Okay, very nice, very nice. I really like that. We have a user or a listener question from the chat from YK. Can anyone be a swap server in the future timeline?
So right now we only have the swap server open for our users. The reason why we do this is because it's easier to do the risk analysis that way. But we are considering opening the swap server to the public. I mean, for now, like, we didn't rush with this because Alex's server is already online, and it works really, really well. We've been using it a lot for testing and that kind of stuff. And so the only difference right now between our server and theirs is the 0 confirmation feature. We have to be careful if we open that to the public, so that we don't lose a lot of money. But yeah.
Yeah, very good point here. The zero conf is a risk, right? Okay, very, very interesting. So we've talked about a lot about swaps already, and one nice feature where we could use this would be, for example, for channel balancing. So how could you use, or how could you do that?
Yeah, so Submarine swaps turn out to be a really good idea for rebalancing your channels both ways. Both, if you want to like have outbound capacity, it's a really interesting way, and to have inbound capacity, especially, which is like the hard thing today in Lightning. Like you want to be able to get some inbound capacity in preferably in a non-custodial way. The guys from Lightning Labs did a really good job with Loopout, especially exploiting this feature, where you can make a Submarine swap where you make a Lightning payment and that payment transforms into an on-chain payment, and at the same time you reclaim your on-chain, your off-chain money, and you gain some inbound capacity. I do believe that we will see more products like targeting node operators that have like native integrations with these technologies, like being able to easily rebalance both gaining outbound capacity or inbound capacity via Submarine swaps. I think it's a great opportunity, and it's really interesting. Eventually, Lightning will have splicing, which is a feature that might make some of these tricks like not that much worth it, because splicing allows you to increase, at least for outbound capacity, it's probably a better way than using Submarine swaps. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I think swaps have some benefits that splicing don't. Either way, splicing doesn't help you to get inbound capacity, which Submarine swaps do. I don't know. We'll see how that like evolves as the Lightning Network evolves, because mainly like when you are using a Submarine swap to get inbound capacity, you are pushing the same problem to the swap server. So the swap server has to solve the inbound capacity problem in some way, and it's right now it's an interesting question how they will do to scale that operation to get more inbound capacity and more inbound capacity as users start using them for getting inbound capacity themselves.
But I think that might actually be a marketplace if you have both Submarine swaps, right, where the user pushes the liquidity in the channel to the server, but also then you can have reverse Submarine swaps, right? If the user has spent a lot of the funds, then he might want to have some back, right? So that is actually real interesting. That might be that we have here quite a liquid marketplace with people wanting to get inbound and outbound liquidity. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so the idea here is that you have to aim as a swap server to be completely balanced, and not only like in the sense of your channels, but in the sense of your operations. Like the optimal situation would be like someone asked me to do a loop in, and then someone asked me to do a loop out, and then loop in, loop out, and if that happens like perfectly, then you will always be balanced without doing any on-chain operation. In practice, that even if it's really balanced, eventually you are gonna hit a point where you have to go to the chain to rebalance or do something else. It's really it's a question of how much time can I wait until I do an on-chain operation, more than if I can not do it at all. And so I do believe that swap servers, especially the ones like the one from Lightning Labs, where they're providing services for the community, will have to think a lot about rebalancing and how to make it really optimal. And I as you said, I think one of the smartest moves you can make in that sense is to provide both services, both loop-ins and loop-outs, and maybe your operations cancel each other out, and so you don't have to do much work. But yeah, it will be a challenge in the next months or year.
Well, it clearly is not going to be boring for you, right? You have a lot of stuff on the roadmap. And we spoke a bit before we went live here on what is the future to come. And you mentioned that you do want to have a fully functioning Lightning node, right? Where you actually have all the stuff on the phone. So what are your thoughts on that? How do you think you can tackle that?
Yeah, so we've been working on it for several months now. The idea is that we want to provide the same experience that we're providing right now with the swaps, but with full channel management and all that stuff going on in the phone. I think right now there's like two different approaches to this. One is like the one that Eclair did, where they designed their node from the first day with with the intention of running it in a phone in mind, I think, and they did really well with this. The problem with that is that since they went with Scala, which is like a Java technology, it's really easy to do it on Android, but not so much on iOS. And we want to do it in both platforms. And so we decided to go with LND. And we are trying to feed on LND in a mobile phone. The problem with this is that LND is somewhat unstable right now in phones, and also it's super resource intensive, even if you use Neutrino, which is like a light node backend. And so the idea is to just take the parts that we need from LND and make it as lightweight as possible, and make LND target both Android and iOS. And so we're working right now with that. And so the idea would be to have like all your money in Lightning all the time. Like since this is a hot wallet, it makes sense that your money be in channels. And if you want to make a Lightning payment, then your money is already in a payment channel. And if you want to do an on-chain payment, then that's just a splice out. Once we have splices, it's just a regular on-chain transaction that will wait exactly the same as if you had your money on-chain. And so you don't lose anything by having your money all the time in channels. And so that's the approach we are taking right now. It's really interesting. We do need some features for this to work correctly, mainly AMP, atomic multipath payments, and also splice outs. But once we have that, I think this will be probably the architecture that will see different wallets take.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with you with your assessment that because it is a mobile wallet, it will most likely be used for small spendings, and therefore Lightning Network makes sense, especially on the long term, right? When hyper Bitcoinization in 2 weeks, and as you say, you can do splicing and you can looping in and out. So yeah, that solves all the on-chain issues. So that is very, very nice. Yeah, I really like a lot of the design decisions that you took.
Yeah, thank you. So the really good insight here was that having your money in Lightning, like you don't lock your money into Lightning, you don't lose liquidity. You actually have more liquidity because right now, like if you have your money in Lightning, then you can do Lightning payments and on-chain payments at any time. And so this is like a a little bit a shift of mindset where right now, if you have your money on chain, then your money is locked in some way because it's less liquid, right? Because you can like send it through Lightning at any time. But yeah, it's really interesting, and I think we'll see wallets change quite a bit in the next year or so as they try to implement Lightning and account for all the differences in the model of what a wallet is when you are a Lightning wallet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great points that you bring up. And so your on-chain funds are secured with a 2 of 2 multisig, right?
Yep.
And I write my bachelor thesis about how we can do multi-signatures in Lightning Network. And that will be the next question. Are you thinking on how we could have such a security model with Lightning Network channels?
Yeah, we thought quite a bit about that. It's a really interesting question. The answer gets a little bit easier once we have Schnorr, because you can have like native multisig, and it makes it much easier to do this kind of thing. Right now, you can do it with. There were a couple of breakthroughs with ECDSA in the last year or so, where you can do native multisig with ECDSA signatures, like just one signature that actually encodes like a multi-sig scheme. It's a lot of work, and I don't think it's worth it before we have Schnorr, since like everything looks like we will have Schnorr not that far in the future, and so we're waiting for that. But yeah, I think once we have Schnorr, doing multi-sig in Lightning will be really feasible and not that difficult. There are other ways to do multisig in Lightning, but they require you to change like the on-chain transactions and having to create extensions to the protocol and all that. And since like at any point, it's important to keep in mind that you should keep being interoperable with other nodes. And so for now, I think that the best way to go multisig in Lightning is to wait for Schnorr and do native multisig in Schnorr.
Yeah, I agree. Multisig and Musig will really help this a lot because we don't have to change anything in the Lightning Network, right? We still have the one key that locks up the Lightning Network payment channel on the one side, and behind that there can be I don't know, 7 of 11 Musig or something. So I think Schnorr will make a lot of that stuff more easier. So we definitely have to keep in touch and spitball a bit about how we can make that happen.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, Dario, we talked about a lot already. Are there some things that you still want to bring up? What are the things that Muun still excites you?
Yeah, so we've been working also with making it really, really easy to use hardware wallets, since like we wanted to make it easy for newcomers who don't understand like that they are handling multiple keys, the difference between a hot wallet and a cold wallet, and also we saw when interviewing hardware wallet users that they were like each operation they had to do with the hardware wallet, they were really scared that something would go wrong, that they check 3 times the address, the amounts, like the fees, everything. They click in the button with fear. And so we wanted to remove that fear from the normal operations of a hardware wallet. And so we made it like a native element in the wallet. And so it's really easy to move money from one wallet to the other, which is what most hardware wallets do. I mean, what most hardware wallet users do. Like they don't like use their hardware wallet to give addresses to other people or to operate daily with that wallet, but they treat it somewhat like a safe vault or something like that. And so we wanted to make it really easy to move money between your wallets. Since at the end of the day, they are all your wallets and it's all your money. And yeah, so I encourage you to try it out. It's really nice. We've been working for now. We have an integration with Trezor. We're working on an integration with Ledger, and maybe more hardware wallets will come in the future. But yeah, so we're trying to actually cover all the regular use cases of a Bitcoiner and make them really easy especially for newcomers.
Okay, very nice. And of course, hardware wallet support is really, really cool. I'm a huge fan here of the ColdCard Wallet, and that uses the latest of the partially signed Bitcoin transaction standard.
Yeah.
Right. So you use a software wallet component to build out of the coins that you have a unsigned transaction, spending inputs and creating outputs, and then you move that via SD card right here into the ColdCard for signing. And of course, most phones have an SD card slot. So are you thinking of having a PSBT export standard for your wallet?
Yeah, we thought about it. So the reason why we haven't done it until now is because there weren't that many libraries out there supporting PSBT. But they are growing by the day, and it's a really, really good standard. I'm super happy about it, having had to deal with different vendors' APIs for hardware wallets. I think PSBT is a step forward, like in the right direction towards interoperability and making it like a standard to interoperate between software and hardware, which I think ColdCard has been spearheading. So yeah, we are considering that as an option in the near future.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Dario, you really excited me about Muun. This is a damn interesting wallet, and you have a lot of innovation here, actually. This is not just a regular old Bitcoin wallet, but actually a couple really novel features that I did not yet think about. So yeah, great work. Keep it up.
Well, thank you. We'll try to keep it up and continue doing really interesting features and like innovating in the space as to how we can make this really easy to use, secure, and non-custodial.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, peers, follow Dario. He really is working here on something really cool. Also, stay up to date with Muun Wallet by following them at Muun Wallet. And of course, read their latest article here on Lightning payments, easier than ever. You can also check it out here and already download the Google Play Store with iOS coming soon in 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that. And what is really cool is that the team actually is rather large. So many eyes are on that, and I hope that there's a lot of good peer review coming here. Of course, it is open source, so check out the GitHub. That is very nice. Peers, this was the show Open Source Everything here on the World Crypto Network, where we talk about all the awesome Libre and open source software. If you want to meet us in Meet Space, then join us at one of the many Bitcoin events that we will be. The next one, Paralelni Polis in Bratislava, Blockchain Hotel Essen, Lightning Hack Day Munich, Value of Bitcoin Conference, also in Munich, Breaking Bitcoin Amsterdam, and Unchained Berlin. So a lot of cool stuff. Dario, will you be at one of these events as well?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe in Baltic Honeybadger and also in Scaling Bitcoin this year, but maybe others. Not sure yet.
Very nice. Okay, perfect. Peers, if you have a question about all this, you can call the Hodl hotline for hourly consulting with Bitcoin peers. And for a humble donation of 1.5 million Satoshis, you can book an hour-long appointment. And also, if you would like to see better sound quality for the shows that we do on road here for all these events, there's the fundraiser, of course, with Lightning Network payments enabled. Peers, thank you very much for joining me here today, and see you on the next show. Bye-bye.